Welcome to the Accelerate America Collective Weekly Campfire. I'm Leslie Youngblood, and today I'm joined by an amazing entrepreneur. I truly hope you enjoy hearing their experiences and life path. Listen in. And I'm going to get started introducing Marianna. Now, she founded Jackalo in 2018 with the mission to make better quality organic garments and change the way we buy and use children's clothes for a better planet. Speaking of kids, you hear one in the background. Their motto is strong enough for active kids, gentle on the environment. Jackalo is the family-run business that focuses on environmental sustainability. It's the first fully circular kids brand in the U.S., and they offer trade up to all their customers. And that means when kids outgrow an article of clothing, parents can send it back for a discount on their next purchase. Then they clean, repair, resell the pre-loved item discounted on their site or recycle it. And that's so amazing because this business model keeps quality clothing out of the waste stream, offers affordable options, and solidifies customer loyalty. Just incredible. Everyone, please welcome Marianna Sachse to the campfire.
Thank you.
Yes. So I just have to, I have to ask, I know that you were inspired to create Jackalo based on your own frustrations with how poorly your son's clothing held up. So tell us more about that. Tell us about the beginning, Marianna.
Sure. So I was really lucky. I have a nephew who's 6 months older than my oldest child.
Mm-hmm.
And like most new parents, I got hand-me-downs whenever I could. And I had lots of wonderful hand-me-downs from my nephew to my son. But I noticed that by the time my son was about 3 or 4 years old, those hand-me-downs were really drying up.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that the reason that was is because the clothes were not lasting. So they didn't last through my nephew long enough to make it to my son. And then when I would buy clothes for my son, they wouldn't last either long enough to become a hand-me-down. And at 4 years old, what you start to see is kids slow down their growth a little bit and they ramp up their activity. So that now they're climbing and, getting ready to climb trees and sliding on their knees and doing all these daredevil tactics that are really hard on clothes. And they're staying in the clothes for longer. So there's just more time for them to be rough on them.
Right.
And combine that with the fact that fast fashion is all about low-cost garments. Even if you're paying a higher price for them, they don't necessarily cost the original company that much more.
Right.
They're just not made to last. And so what I would see is when I went to look for secondhand garments, because I'm an environmentalist, I always wanted to shop secondhand first. The only secondhand garments that I would find for my kids' ages were dress clothes. So dress clothes is great. Okay, you can get whatever you need for dress clothes because kids wear them once or twice and then they're done.
Of course, right.
But for everyday clothes, there's just nothing. And so I realized that we had a problem here, that clothes weren't being made to last beyond the first child that would wear them, and oftentimes not even long enough for the first child to outgrow them. So with my son, I found that it was pretty normal for his pants to get a hole in the knees within the first month.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just ridiculous. Why are you spending any money on something that doesn't last a month? And so I started to think about okay, so what would it look like to come up with a product that would last longer, that was designed to be repaired, and was designed to be resold and reused.
Sure.
And so, one of the things we find in fashion is that very few garments actually get reused. Most end up in the landfill. And part of that is because with all of the blended fabrics we use, very little can actually be recycled. So designing something that can be recycled from the get-go is really important. So that all of our garments, when they're outgrown, if they're in a condition where they can't be reused, they can be easily recycled.
Gotcha. Now tell me, how did you go from that idea and you seeing this problem to it becoming a real legitimate business idea and something that you're like, no, I can do this and I'm going to do this.
Yeah. I mean, so I don't come from a fashion background traditionally. So I didn't go
Mm-hmm.
to fashion school. That wasn't my path. I'd
Mm-hmm.
always been obsessed with making. And so I started, I was the type of kid who always had a little entrepreneurial gig going,
Love
whether
it.
I was making or modifying clothes for my friends, or I had like a catering business, my own catering
Nice.
business when I was early in college.
Uh-huh.
I always came from this perspective of if you wanted something, you could make it. And if
Mm-hmm.
if people liked what you made, then you could sell it.
Right.
Um, and so when my family had a transition about 6 years ago at this point, I was
Mm-hmm.
pregnant and my husband got a job in the Netherlands and we moved there. And
Wow.
I decided that that was a really good time for me to explore this idea, partially because the Netherlands is so close to Portugal, where there's really great manufacturing that's high
Oh,
quality and fair.
wow.
But
Wow.
also because, I was becoming a mom of two, and I was like,
Sure.
all right, this is a good time for a transition. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just dove deep on the idea and ran a crowdfunding campaign on
Wow.
I Fund Women, and
Oh,
basically
yes.
said to
Uh-huh.
myself, yeah, they're
Mhm.
really a great group, and particularly
Yes.
for any women-led businesses, I do recommend them as an alternative to Kickstarter.
I love
Um,
it.
but
Yes, I
I
know
just
Tanya
was kind of like, if I
Couture.
meet my goal, then I'll go into production and I'll give this a shot.
Yes. Love it. That's so awesome. Yeah, Tanya Couture, who won the pitch competition, who was in the spring pitch with you, also
Yep.
did an I Fund Women campaign. And I just think, again, like, say it louder for the women entrepreneurs here in the
Yeah.
back, like, go and check it out because that's amazing. That's so awesome. I love that. It's always interesting the journey that life takes us on and
Yeah.
the moments where like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm in like the perfect position. I have the time, like I have another baby coming, like this is go time, this is when I'm going to make it happen. So that's so
Exactly.
awesome. And you mentioned this before that you're always entrepreneurial. So who, even outside of that, like who were some of your early influences in general in your life? The collective would like to know.
Yeah. My mom was a really big influence. So my mom was a home sewist and a maker.
Wow.
I was a third generation home sewist. And so,
Wow.
really just kind of the type of person who would see something they liked and say, all right, I'm going to figure out how to make it. And so she
Wow.
supported me in making whatever I wanted to make. And whenever I like got to a point where I was making enough of them that I could turn it into a little business, she was my biggest champion.
That's
And
amazing.
she passed away 10 years ago,
Wow.
but really at the end of her life gave kind of made sure that I felt that I would always be supported
Hmm.
emotionally, even if I wasn't
Hmm.
doing the kind of, I'm from DC. So
Hmm.
DC, the expectation is largely that you're in like politics or academia.
Ah.
And so it was kind of a big deal that I was doing something that was neither political nor academic,
Sure.
and feeling that support to go ahead and do something that feels like a 180 from
Sure.
the expectations of my community.
Right. Oh, what a great mom. That's wonderful. As she should, right? Like that's just so
Yeah.
wonderful. I love that so much. Tell me, let's dive into the home sewist a little bit before we get to the next question from the collective. Does that mean that is it like deeper skills than just like, I don't know, a seamstress? Like tell us like what that specifically means, Mariana.
Yeah, so I define a home sewist as someone who is not a seamstress. So
Okay.
I wouldn't go and like market my work as being a seamstress, but I'll make clothes for myself, I'll make clothes for my friends.
Mm.
I can quilt, I can embroider,
Oh,
um, and not related to sewing, I also knit, but it's just like someone
Mhm.
who is into the craft of sewing.
Sure.
Not necessarily something that is like professionally marketable.
Gotcha.
But it's enough of a knowledge base for sewing that I understand the different types of seams. I understand the different construction elements. I'm home
Mhm.
taught. I didn't go to school to
Right.
become a seamstress. I studied at the feet of women who had this traditional knowledge. I mean, because
Wow.
that's what it is. It's a traditional knowledge that's passed down
Right.
from generation to generation.
Sure. Now, so when you would look at the clothes that you would get from buy at the store for your son, or
Yeah,
maybe you didn't, like, or your husband or anyone, would you just be like, "Oh my God, look at the seams on this."
yeah,
Like, are you kidding me?
yeah, totally, 100%. I would look at things and my biggest pet peeve was always the stripes that don't line up.
Oh, sure.
Paying attention to things like that.
Mhm.
Or just, when I see someone who has an expensive t-shirt on, but I can tell that the way that the sleeves are hemmed is the cheapest way possible to
Yeah.
hem sleeves.
What is
It's
that way? What is it? What should we be looking for, Mariana?
so the thing that I look for is the like vertical versus horizontal stitching on the visible side. So all
Oh,
knits are going to be seamed with like a cover lock
fascinating.
that wraps multiple threads around the end of
Yeah.
the garment. And sometimes you'll see. Sometimes I think they do it for style because it is kind of cool looking. You'll just see a series of vertical lines as the
Mhm.
hem.
Mhm.
That's not a really strong way to do the hem. I think a stronger
Mm.
way is 2 rows of horizontal stitching that goes all the way around. So I
Gotcha.
look at things like that. Like, that's a better
Wow.
quality shirt that's gonna last longer.
I love that. I love that you have that knowledge and that's something like there's so many of those things that every person carries with them that uniquely that they are skilled and like that they could like call out. And so I just think that's fantastic. So let's come back to Jackalo now. And you're in the Netherlands, you're starting like you're making like a go of it. Like that first day, what were you feeling?
I was feeling like I had no idea what I was getting into. I mean, the first day I would consider myself really into it
Hmm.
was I traveled to Paris to go to this event
Wow.
called Première Vision, which
Yeah.
is like a huge trade show
Yep.
where you can connect with manufacturers, like
Hmm.
mills, fabric mills, but
Sure.
also manufacturers that do sewing. You can go to stands that sell only buttons and zippers and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and basically, what they tell you, like when you're going for the first time, is like always print up a business card. It doesn't matter what it says; it has to have you have to have a business card. They're old
Really?
fashioned that way, and
Wow.
never say you're thinking of starting something. Just be like, I'm doing this thing.
Wow.
And so there's a certain amount of imposter syndrome going into that, where you're like,
Sure.
well, I am thinking about something, but I
Right.
guess I have to tell them
Mm-hmm. This
I'm
is real
doing it.
now.
This
Yeah.
is real now. Um, and that was a huge learning experience. And, unsurprisingly, I didn't go with anybody I met there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I learned a ton by going there. I learned a ton about what the different mills expect, what the
Huh.
minimums are, what
Sure.
they're looking for in a partner. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I felt like I was in over my head and definitely was reaching out to all of the right, advisors and people who have experience in this space to guide me.
Got you. Have you ever gone back to that show or have you like found other routes? Like how did
I
you
found
then?
other routes. I
Okay.
didn't go back to that show because for me, environmentalism is so core to what I do, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not a particularly eco-friendly environment. So
Gotcha.
they'll have some mills that are eco-friendly. They might
Mm-hmm.
have a little showcase of them. But honestly, kind of once you're in the space and active for long enough,
Mm-hmm.
you just find the right partners
Gotcha.
through different connections.
Gotcha. So it was a connection that led you to some of your partners. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I didn't connect with anyone there that I ended up going with.
Mhm.
Um, I found, let's see, for my first fabric, I found a really wonderful German company
Hmm.
that is kind of a triple bottom line company. They work with partners in the Czech Republic, in
Mhm.
Kyrgyzstan, and in Uganda to grow and mill sustainable cotton.
Wow.
Um, and they're one of the few companies that keeps a decent amount in stock. So it's really friendly to early stage entrepreneurs in the fashion space,
Gotcha.
because one of the barriers to entry for almost anyone is product minimums, whether
Sure.
that orders for fabric or with a
Hmm.
factory, how many you have to produce of a specific style.
Hmm.
And so going with stock or with dead stock fabric can be a great way to get into the space without having to start with, 1,000 units of something you don't know is going to sell.
Right, definitely. Yeah. Would you say that finding them, so the collective, the next question they would like to know is what was the defining moment? Would it be finding this German mill? Like, would it be selling your first garment? Tell us what a defining moment was for you and Jackalo.
I mean, for me, definitely it was the success of the crowdfunding campaign. I had
Gotcha.
done a ton of work to get there in terms of getting my product samples done, and looking great, photographing them.
Mm,
Um, but for me, the crowdfunding was really what told me that there's interest in this, that it
sure.
wasn't just me and a handful of people I knew
Mhm.
who were um, interested in long-lasting clothes that were also sustainable. But
Mhm.
there were enough people out there who were willing to put some money behind it that
Right.
it felt like, okay, this is something I can move forward with.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's got to be one thing when you know that you have a good idea, but when it's reflected back to you and people also are like, yeah, no, that's really good idea. And you're like, yeah, right. Uh-huh. It like gives you that
Yeah,
confidence of like, no, right, I'm not crazy. I mean, some people,
exactly.
there'll always be people that don't get the vision and don't buy into the mission. And I think that, can be one of the most difficult things about being an entrepreneur is you have to be so in love with that mission that um, that you have to try to kill it really badly, but that you still believe in it and you will still keep going with it. So that's so wonderful. What was the first garment that you sold?
It was our ash pants. So
Gotcha.
this, I try to keep things as evergreen as possible, because I know that one of the things that's really frustrating for parents and for kids
Hmm.
is when you develop a favorite item and then the kid grows and you can't get it anymore. Kids
Hmm.
can be incredibly particular. Um, so I try to keep as much of our collection evergreen as possible. So if something's selling, we're going to keep making it.
Mm.
Um, and our ash pant was the first style we ever did, and it's kind of like an updated moto pant,
Cool.
where it's made out of organic twill, reinforced at the knee, and it has an elasticated waist, and it has just a
Hmm.
little extra length in the legs so that kids can have a little more room to grow into it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's the style that has been the most popular since the very beginning.
Wow.
And the biggest feedback I get on that in terms of changes is, can we just do more colors? Because they like the style so much, they're just like, okay, so let's do more colors. And so we've
Right.
been doing that, and it feels great that we've found something that really works for a lot of kids.
I love that. Yeah, I can only imagine. Yes, I know I have three boys, and so right, the favorite pants, the knees rip, and they still want to wear it, and you're just like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you just cannot. Like this cannot go on. So that's just pants, man, are just
Oh my God.
so important, so important. All
Yep.
right, so we are wrapping up here, and I do have some final questions after this one, even from the collective. They would like to know, Mariana, is name one thing you wouldn't have done if you hadn't taken the leap to entrepreneurship.
Oh, I just would not have met this tremendous community of
Mhm.
entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
Um, I think that when you're not actively creating something as an entrepreneur, you kind of often think of entrepreneurs as this like separate group, or
Sure.
um, like a distant thing. But
Mhm.
what I've found is that once you put yourself in this space, you connect with so many people who are also creating fabulous things and
Mhm.
learning and pushing themselves. And for someone like me who comes from a very liberal arts background,
Mhm.
that background really does encourage you to be a bit of a like jack of all trades,
Right.
kind of a true Renaissance person.
Mhm.
And that's a very comfortable space and kind of mindset for an entrepreneur. And
Mhm.
so you end up just finding tons of people who are like you. And
Mm.
that's, it's really nice to just find
Yeah.
like a community of people I identify with.
Right. Oh, no doubt. That's so wonderful. Now, tell me next is so you were one of our spring pitch finalists and
Yeah.
you participated in that pitch competition. Um, what would be some of your best advice for a business owner looking to participate in pitch and grant competitions, and especially doing I Fund Women too? Tell us
Yeah.
some of your advice.
Yeah. So for pitch competitions, my advice is to share your drafts with a breadth of different people,
Mm.
because everybody is going to have some element of feedback that really may make your pitch stronger. So for me, I had three different people, or kind of one was a little bit of a group that I shared my pitch with.
Hmm.
And each time I shared it, I made substantial improvements.
Gotcha.
Yes, you don't want to share it with everybody, but don't feel like you have to hold it too close to the vest, because
Right.
the more you share it and the more you practice giving your pitch, the stronger it's going to be. You'll see the things that need to change, they'll have feedback, and overall, it's just going to get so much better. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if you're considering doing crowdfunding,
Mm-hmm.
like through I Fund Women, my biggest advice is to just get comfortable asking people for money, and not being afraid to push it until they truly say no. So, like, if they don't
Mm.
respond, that's not a no.
Oh.
Like, if you,
Right. So
it's not a
true.
no.
You're kind of
Um,
that kind of like you're right. It's not a no until they say no.
Until they
So
say no, and that's
true.
okay. Like, I mean,
Right. Right.
I had a couple of people who were like, "I love what you're doing. I'm just not financially in a position to support it." Even if, like,
Right.
because your ask doesn't have to be a big one. It can be $10, it can be
Right.
$100, it can be $1,000,
Right.
whatever works for the people you know.
Mhm.
Um, and it's okay if someone says no. They're not saying no to you. They're saying no to like their specific, what's right for
Right.
their specific situation
Situation.
at that time.
Right.
Um, it's not an insult.
Right.
And so kind of learning to weather that and to push
Mm.
forward, and really that cataloging of like, who is everybody you know? And like,
Right?
how do
Who
you reach
haven't I
out to
talked to?
yeah, because your campaign is not going to be successful if you're just like, I put it on social media and nobody did anything. It's like,
Right. Right.
and that's one of the reasons I Fund Women is so great, is because they'll walk you through like, what's your pitch? What's your story? What's the script
Yeah.
for your video? But also,
Gotcha.
how do you build out that list of everybody you know? And I frankly even sat down with my husband. I was like, who's everybody you know? And
Wow. Sure.
make that list. And so if
Right.
you don't have a partner, like, who's your bestie? Who's like your
Right.
best champion? And
Mhm.
can you enlist them to help you with your crowdfunding? And all of
Right.
that makes a huge difference.
No doubt. Oh, that's fantastic advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I know we're wrapping up and it's 1:30 right now, Mariana, but I have to, final question to you is what's next for Jackalo?
Yeah, so what's next for Jackalo is more growth focused on growing our trade up program, getting
Mhm.
more product offerings out there. I'm really excited about our first um, I'm calling them unjeans. They're like denim,
Oh.
but not like the typical jeans for kids. Still really
Mhm.
soft and cozy and elastic waist.
Mhm.
Learning from our customers about what products they need and where I can grow our product line. And
Mhm.
I'm starting to reach out to investors for growth opportunities.
Wonderful. Oh, that sounds so exciting. We can't wait to follow along with you. Please keep us updated on everything.
Oh,
Please drop those links to those beautiful clothes. Thank you again for joining us today, Marianna. It was a pleasure speaking with you and learning about your journey with Jackalo. And
thank
thank
you so much.
everybody. Yeah, thank you all for joining us. Marianna, any final words before we finish the campfire?
Yeah, just thank you so much for this opportunity. And if you guys want to connect with me or follow along on social, we're at Hello Jackalo on all of the platforms, and our website is hellojackalo.com.
All right. Thank you so much, Marianna. Have a wonderful day. And thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye now.
If you'd like to join the Accelerate Collective and attend future campfires, visit accelerateamerica.com/join and check out our future guest at accelerateamerica.com/campfire. Take care.